Hello everyone, I'm Vlad Spara and I know things. Today I'm presenting an Italian excellence, the Benelli M3. The story of Benelli is the story of a company born out of the passion of two Benelli brothers. Along with a particular inertia system, a rather strange and counterintuitive system used practically exclusively by Benelli. For its line of shotguns, Benelli produces little else besides the Canalisia shotguns. The Benelli family produced motorcycles for many years. There are Benelli motorcycles, and yes, it's the same Benelli. In the family business, two of the brothers were particularly passionate about hunting and clay pigeon shooting. They themselves, for example, even before the war, in the 1940s, handcrafted weapons dedicated to this world. They made double-barreled shotguns, they made rifles, all of it done, of course, in their free time when they weren't working at the motorcycle company. So they were people with a fair ability to understand firearms, but above all, they were running a motorcycle factory. They were experts in making anything mechanical, you could say. Their story takes a turn when they meet Mr. Bruno Civolani. Mr. Bruno Civolani is an engineer from Bologna who patents and invents this particular system called the Inertia system. In the 1960s, Civolani went knocking on the doors of major arms companies to try to make his product. He has an idea, but lacks the ability to produce or market it. Eventually, he reached the Benelli brothers' door, who were quite interested in his system. And so, by combining Civolani's invention with their industrial and production capabilities, they founded Benelli Army in '67 in Urbino. They would open Benelli Army in Urbino, and even today, Benelli is still present in Urbino. It's one of the most important industries in that town. And they opened it specifically to produce firearms with this inertia system. Initially, the firearms they introduced to the market were hunting and especially sporting firearms. The advantage of this inertia system is that it's very fast in operation, and so it also allows for personal customization. In the world of clay pigeon shooting, to show how quickly their action works and how their semi-automatic can compete with any double barrel, for example in trap or skeet shooting. In a demonstration, they even hit 10 targets in less than 2 seconds, which is an extremely fast operating cycle for a shotgun like that. Benelli's first model, the 121, was fairly successful. Even today, you can find these Benellis on the used firearms market. However, Benelli is trying to expand and wants to focus on the world of police and military firearms. Despite some success in the production of sporting firearms, they will have financial problems. And in '83, the company will be acquired by Beretta. While keeping the name Benelli Società per Azioni, it will be owned by Beretta and Beretta. It will certainly help them, especially when it comes to international marketing, and it will help them reach customers they didn't have yet, namely the police and the military. This is how the Benelli M1 was born. The Benelli M1 is the first specifically designed for tactical use, police and military. The Benelli 1 and Benelli M2 closely resemble the M1. However, these are weapons that use this system. In short, they are exclusively semi-automatic repeating weapons. Semi-automatic rifles, even though they have their advantages, also have a disadvantage, especially when it comes to police forces. You should know, for those who don't, that there is a huge variety of types of ammunition that can be used in a rifle. And the police often need to use non-lethal ammunition, such as rubber pellets or ammunition that contains tear gas. So the police don't always fire lethal ammunition. The police, more than anyone, need an extremely versatile weapon. And like any semi-automatic weapon, a round that isn't powerful enough prevents the weapon from functioning properly. That's a problem. The M3 model solves this issue, and that's why it will be successful among many police forces. Because it is able to function both as a pump-action shotgun and as a semi-automatic. So, depending on the need, depending on the type of ammunition the police have to use, the system can be adjusted. If you use non-lethal ammunition or rounds that don't have enough power to operate the weapon properly, the gun can very quickly be adapted for pump-action use. On the other hand, if you use sufficiently powerful ammunition, the weapon can function in semi-automatic mode. This feature is not unique to Benelli. For example, a very famous weapon, the special-purpose automatic shotgun. 12 can do exactly the same thing. The result is an extremely versatile weapon because it can really use any type of ammunition. From power to transparency, from type, no matter what you load, a Benelli can fire it. By the way, converting the weapon to these two firing modes is extremely simple. We'll see this more clearly at the shooting range, but for now it's just in pump mode. If I press the release here, since it doesn't have any ammo right now, it stays open. If I press the release, I can bring the pump forward again and make it work this way. I'll show you up close now, but I have a kind of lever that by rotating it and bringing the pump forward, as you can see, it disconnects the shutter so it doesn't move. The weapon is currently semi-automatic. Let me move the camera so you can better understand the features of the Benelli M3, and then we'll take it to the range so you'll understand even better what I mean. The Benelli M3, as we've seen, to the untrained eye, looks like a pump-action shotgun. That, of course, is only half the story. It has a fairly conventional layout, using a tube for feeding, a tubular magazine. And to load the ammunition, we insert them, like in any pump-action shotgun. Here we have the magazine, and the ammunition will be inserted here. We'll see it better when we go to use it. The first thing, however, that stands out to someone who owns, for example, a pump-action shotgun is that the bolt has its own charging handle. That's typical. Otherwise, why have the pump? This model, in particular, has a very long barrel. But obviously, there are options to have barrels of different lengths. This is another big advantage of having a shotgun. I'm warning you that I won't take it apart, because to disassemble it, I would first have to remove a screw here in the front. And then to further disassemble the bolt, I need another tool, which I don't have right now. So I'd like to try to explain, maybe by showing you an animation. I'll break down, just like Benelli did, how this system works, because it's a very counterintuitive system. The weapon fires from a closed bolt, providing a solid lockup. The bolt is actually very small and has a rotating head that locks into the barrel. At the back, there is a bolt carrier, a very heavy bolt carrier. Between the bolt and the bolt carrier, there is a spring connecting them, a very small and very strong spring. Now what happens? In semi-automatic mode, when I go to shoot, I repeat, the only thing connecting the bolt carrier with the bolt is this very heavy spring. When I shoot and the weapon recoils, so it goes back, everything goes back. The bolt carrier doesn't do that because due to inertia, it stays still. Inertia, obviously, if you know physics, is the property, the ability of a certain mass to resist motion. Explained in very simple terms, the fact is that since this bolt carrier is connected to a spring, it stays still. However, it stays still because everything else recoils. The weapon recoils, and so the bolt itself is recoiling together with the weapon. This spring between the bolt and the bolt carrier gets compressed. Once compressed, the bolt is locked. The barrel can't go anywhere. What does it do? It throws the bolt carrier backward, which, with the inclined surfaces inside, causes the bolt to rotate and cycles the weapon. I repeat, explained like this, it's quite counterintuitive. I'll show you an animation here that actually shows how the weapon fires and recoils. The bolt carrier stays still, and then the spring pushes the bolt carrier, which causes the system to open. It's a system whose advantage is that it's very fast. It's a system that doesn't have a recoiling barrel, like recoil-operated systems, but it also doesn't have any gas ports anywhere. Weapons and rifles with a gas port, for example, need to be cleaned more often. So one of the arguments used by Benelli is that this weapon needs to be cleaned less often, and it's more reliable in various conditions. The disadvantages of this system are quite obvious from the fact that no other weapons use this system. Since it's very fast, it's not particularly suitable for very powerful ammunition, but it's perfect for smoothbore shotguns. Just to be clear, shotguns can be powerful, but the pressure of the ammunition is not high at all. They're relatively low-pressure ammunition, so there's not a lot of force to contain. Meanwhile, water-cooled guns often have much higher pressures than a shotgun, so they'll need a slower system that can contain that pressure. We obviously have the trigger. Behind the trigger, there's a small safety. Other controls we notice are this release button for the bolt. When I run out of ammunition, the bolt stays open. Interesting hold open, as you can see. You can look inside and I can put my finger in, and to close it I can press this button. Now to convert this thing I'll show you, but what happens inside is that the system is being converted. I can detach or attach the pump from the bolt carrier. In short, when the pump is working, the bolt carrier can't go anywhere. And so there's none of that movement from the spring compressions. The bolt carrier becomes an integral part of the weapon, so it moves with the weapon and recoils together with it. While by releasing it and letting it move freely, it's only connected to the bolt by the spring. Properly speaking, it works together. Automatic, how can we do it? We have the pump in front. Right now, we're in semi-automatic mode. As you can see, I've opened the bolt, but the pump no longer acts on the weapon. In front, I have these two tabs that move. By turning the tab, bringing it back until I feel a click and then releasing it. I've switched to pump mode. It's really very simple. And now, at this moment, the weapon only works with the pump. It's a bit hard to show because I can't bring it forward. If I don't press the release, since there are no rounds, the bolt doesn't go forward. Pressing the release doesn't move it either because it's linked to the pump, even though the recoil spring is pushing it. Which other pump-action shotguns don't have? If I pull the pump back on a regular pump-action shotgun and release the bolt, it doesn't go forward, it doesn't snap forward like the Benelli does. Also because this conversion system is extremely simple. In fact, when holding the weapon forward here, I have to be careful to use it in semi-automatic mode, not to pull the pump back. Because there's a risk that it might move forward on its own. To convert it back to semi-automatic use, I simply turn these levers, move the pump about ½ centimeter forward, and release the levers. Here we are, converted back to exclusively semi-automatic use. The system is really extremely simple in its concept, but a bit more complicated when it comes to the physics and how the system works. I swear to you, I had serious difficulties researching and really trying to understand how it works. I've just explained it to you in simple words, but this explanation comes from my own reworking of collected data. I found it quite counterintuitive. What can I say? All that's left is to go try it out. Well, here we are with our Benelli M3 to test it. First of all, we'll try it in pump action mode. So let's load 5 rounds and see how it goes. Obviously, to load it, you do it like any pump action shotgun. You put the shell in the tube and push it in.
I'll tell you something I don't like. It bites my thumb when I load the shells.
My shotgun, for example, the one I showed you, doesn't do this, but let's try anyway. And since when there are no more shells, it stays open. I couldn't close the weapon. Great, the barrel is nice and smoky now. Here's what I can say. Let's convert it now. As we've seen for semi-automatic use. We rotate the lever, move the pump forward, release it, and it should now work in semi-automatic mode. Well, let's load it and try it out. Okay. To load it, I'll try again. Maybe the ammo isn't strong enough. Using it now worked. Now last try. I'll try to fire 3 shots as quickly as possible. Right? Since it's a very fast action, let's see how fast it is if there are no malfunctions. The ammunition I'm using is birdshot, and it's just enough to make this system work. Did you see that I had a malfunction because the bolt didn't go hard enough the first time? Maybe it was the first shot, maybe something still needed, you know, the grease needed to move a bit, but what can I say? Let's try. It jams. The last time I had the question, okay, I wanted to do it as quickly as possible, but it kicks back too much and we're in a closed environment and I really want to avoid breaking these iron wires that hold the target. In an open environment, it could be done. You really need a lot of experience to shoot so quickly with a rifle. I simply don't have it. I don't have a particular interest in smoothbore rifles, but still, the cycle is very fast.
I know it. Do you hear it? You can fire rapidly in quick bursts.
You need a much more experienced shooter than me. And I've told you many times that I'm terrible at shooting.